A man awoke to find himself trapped by a group of finger-sized figures, bound tightly with ropes like a pig waiting to be slaughtered. With a slight effort, he easily uprooted the wooden stakes that bound him, sending the surrounding figures fleeing in terror. Jack, convinced it was all a dream, tried to close his eyes and wake himself. However, the general gave him no chance, stabbing Jack's large feet with his dart. The pricking sensation told Jack it wasn't a dream. The sturdy figures threw hooks at Jack, snagging his pants and attempting to bind him again. Dozens of figures pulled back, and Jack, caught unawares, was successfully pulled down. The general was successfully shoved into a ditch, and Jack, unfortunately, fainted again. When he awoke, he found himself being carried by thousands of figures into the palace of the dwarfs. The king, however, showed no interest in these sudden, massive figures, and ordered Jack imprisoned in a massive prison. While the prison rations weren't exactly sumptuous, 2 toothpick-sized bundles of straw were more than enough for Jack to fill his stomach. The next day, Jack was treated like livestock by the general and left outside the palace. Upon learning of this, the general immediately grabbed Jack's ears, turned around, and rushed towards the palace at lightning speed. Jack offered his assistance, but the general, fearing his credit would be taken away, ordered Jack to stay put, while he drew his centimeter-long sword and went to rescue the princess. Seeing the princess in imminent danger, the general's men, disregarding orders, flipped a switch and removed all of Jack's chains. Just as the enemy was about to take the princess away, Jack stepped forward like a god. The time the general reached the palace, the princess had vanished. Just as the princess was about to express her gratitude to Jack, the palace alarm sounded again. A fire had broken out, and the king was trapped in his chambers. The situation was dire, and Jack carelessly rushed toward the scene. Seeing the king in his chambers, Jack tried to reach out, but the intense flames burned his hands. The king, instantly drenching him. While the action was unbearable to watch, it was thankfully effective. The general, upon seeing this, tried to intervene, but Jack turned and gave the remaining water to him. Furious, the general ordered Jack's execution. Fortunately, the king, wise and insightful, not only pardoned Jack's death but also decided to repay him for saving his life. At Jack's thank you dinner, the king prepared a delicious meal for him and decided to build a seaside villa specifically for him, tailored to his size. Not only did he have a personal electric fan, but even coffee was served by miniature figures. Haircuts were performed by several Tonys, and massages were even performed by a small team, who rhythmically massaged Jack's back. To provide Jack with a place to relax, the king even invested heavily in a cinema, with actors performed by miniature figures. Jack enjoyed a carefree stay in Lilliput for several months, and was even appointed the protector of the nation by the king. However, the general was deeply displeased, and immediately shut down all of Lilliput's defenses. However, this was discovered by the enemy nation across the sea, who ordered an attack. Immediately, a torrential rain of shells descended, inflicting unprecedented damage to the Lilliputian palace. The king looked out, and saw the enemy warships densely packed across the sea, like a steel forest. The overwhelming force filled him with worry. In this critical moment, the king resolutely dispatched Jack to meet the enemy. However, Jack, faced with the countless warships, felt a surge of fear. However, he knew his duty as a general was to protect his country. He took a deep breath, mustered his courage, and resolutely stripped off his shirt and shoes. Tried to persuade them peacefully to abandon their invasion. However, the enemy, unmoved by his persuasion, mercilessly ordered their fire. Suddenly, countless cannonballs rained down on Jack. Fortunately, Jack's belly was thick with fat, and the cannonballs bounced back like a solid shield. This miraculous sight instantly made Jack realize that he might be invincible. A surge of unprecedented courage surged within him. He suddenly reached out, grasped the cables in the sea, and tugged all the warships back like ants. His astonishing strength stunned the enemy. Hundreds of warships, like lost ships, were easily defeated by his pull. Thanks to Jack's heroic defense, peace and tranquility finally returned to Lilliput. Jack became a beloved hero, and the nation erupted in jubilation, with his imposing posters plastered across the streets. However, the general lost his command, and even his engagement with the princess was ruthlessly broken off, leaving the seeds of hatred deep within him. Arms of the enemy, disclosing his carefully crafted plan to defeat Jack. Unaware of this, Jack even began his concert in Lilliput. Suddenly, a shrill alarm pierced the joyous atmosphere. Jack was startled, but initially dismissed the appearance of an egg-shaped robot. Its cute appearance led Jack to mistake it for a frail, harmless creature. But the next second, the robot underwent a transformer-like transformation, instantly transforming into a towering, imposing steel behemoth. Jack's jaw dropped at the sight, his body aching with fear. His legs gave way, and he turned to flee. However, the robot's movements were far more agile, its powerful mechanical arms snatching Jack up. Terrified, Jack instinctively surrendered. Despite the cheers of the surrounding crowd, they failed to stir him fighting spirit. Jack was then bound tightly with ropes and taken like a lamb to the slaughter to a mysterious location. Initially, Jack thought it was a deserted island, but he had no idea the danger was approaching. When he regained consciousness, his clothes had been replaced with a pink dress. Before he could react, the ground shook, and a gigantic human face appeared before him. Jack had been transported to Giant Island, deep in the ocean. Unfortunately, the giant Rowley mistook Jack for a doll, forcing him to endure repeated sexual abuse. Furthermore, Rowley lovingly changed Jack's diaper, let him kiss other dolls, and upon discovering Jack was a man, he took a pin and performed a sex change operation on him. Jack's nostalgia for his troubled yet wonderful time in Lilliput grew stronger, and his resolve to escape grew stronger. Perhaps in a stroke of fate's mercy, he stumbled upon an intact parachute amidst the wreckage of a skeleton soldier. Seizing the opportunity presented by the little girl's carelessness, he resolutely embarked on his escape. Upon returning to Lilliput, he was surprised to discover the goddess Susan had also appeared there. Susan, searching for Jack, had also stumbled upon this mysterious world. This time, Jack's eyes were free of evasion and cowardice. He resolutely made a promise to the king. He would defeat the general in the upcoming decisive battle and help the king reclaim his kingdom from the enemy. The next day, a war of the century loomed. Dignity and Jack held no. The battle horn blew, and both sides quickly engaged. The ferocious back and forth was so intense that it seemed difficult to determine the victor. However, the general had clearly made thorough preparations. During the actual battle, he had secretly modified the robot, causing it to unleash a powerful electrical current, like a deadly bolt of lightning. Jack, unable to dodge, was struck by the current, his muscles instantly paralyzed. Even facing such a formidable foe, Jack held no thought of chance retreat, for he knew he could not betray the trust and expectations of the people. As the battle dragged on, Jack fell into a desperate situation, unable to fight back. At this critical juncture, his friend, like a valiant knight, galloped in and joined the fray. With his agility and exceptional wit, he skillfully used a rope to infiltrate the robot. By then, Jack, battered by the enemy's relentless assault, was practically dying. Just as the general was about to launch a fatal attack on the robot, suddenly the robot froze, like a machine without power. The current ceased abruptly. The general, stunned and bewildered, thought the robot had malfunctioned. Crucial moment. Jack, keenly seizing this rare opportunity, stood up and rushed forward, kicking the robot with all his might. Then, he swiftly lifted a heavy stone statue and pounced on the robot's back like a cheetah, unleashing a torrent of furious blows on its head, each blow brimming with fury and determination. Finally, he found the robot's power switch and, without hesitation, tore it free. The robot was completely devastated, and Jack had finally won the final victory. Cheers erupted like thunder in the sand, and the entire Lilliputian nation reveled in the joy of victory. Susan gazed at the brave and fearless man before her, her eyes filled with admiration and love. Jack seized this opportunity to muster the courage to confess his love for her. Susan accepted this sincere love. At the end of the story, Jack and Susan. For more interesting video, hit the subscribe button to motivate me. And also give like and comment.